Hey everybody, welcome to another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Coller here along with Sam Ekstrom. The Minnesota Vikings lose to the Los Angeles Rams 30-23, and I guess the best way we could put it, Sam, is missed opportunity, missed opportunity, missed opportunity for the Vikings as they were given three gifts by Matthew Stafford, but they said, nope, we're not opening those Christmas boxes that you handed us in the form of interceptions. Nope, we instead are going to fail in the red zone and come up short with the running game and then make it kind of interesting. But overall, an offensive performance from the Vikings that just was not good enough to beat a team in Los Angeles that struggled mightily on offense themselves.
Yeah, I think you referenced him as Stafford Claus, just full of stocking stuffers today. And the stat of the day, and I'm sure there's a lot of them, but the Vikings are now 2-4 when they go +2 in the take give. That's bad. That's not complimentary football. That's not being opportunistic. And red zone is kind of the buzzword of this one, because Justin Jefferson, with a very direct criticism after the game of the Vikings red zone play calling, saying we need to be more aggressive right away when we get down there, but I'm not the one calling the plays, kind of pointing things right at Clint Kubiak, who deserves criticism, but Kirk Cousins deserves some too. He was indecisive on third down, inaccurate on third down. Even when he got on rollouts, he didn't seem very confident in where to go with the football. He was taking sacks in the red zone. Plenty to dislike about his performance as well. Needing to have a big game, needing to get out of the funk that he's been in. He had Adam Thielen for a little bit of the game, but again, Thielen leaving. The offense, though, just overall not up to snuff. No Dalvin Cook. Running game was poor. Passing game didn't get going quickly enough. And special teams gives up a touchdown on a punt return. So you like the picks, but you don't like much else about this performance by the Vikings.
Right. Same old song and dance when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings offense, struggling when the opposing team has a really good defensive line. And Aaron Donald was very much as advertised today. He has to be the fastest defensive lineman I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he was running down Alexander Mattison from behind. He broke through the offensive line one time where I don't think anyone got a hand on him. And for a defensive tackle, that's pretty rare. But still at the same time, Sam, as good as Aaron Donald was, it's not like he caused a ton of strip sacks or turnovers by himself or hit Cousins' arm on an interception or anything like that. Like, he did not entirely wreck the game, and yet the Vikings offense just couldn't get going. There was no consistency in terms of the running game, and then when it came to all the situations that you need somebody to step up and make a play, they just didn't. I mean, they get the ball early in the game. They're down by 7 points. They're rolling down the field, looking like it's going to be a great response drive to the Rams, starting off with a touchdown, and then there's an interception. Where maybe the throw is just a little bit late. And it has felt like in recent weeks that the timing on a lot of different throws has just been off. And there was a throw that Jefferson was asked about post-game where he's coming out of a route at the end of the half. Maybe it looks like if he makes the catch, they could try a long field goal because of a very bizarre decision by the Rams to squib kick and then kick it right into somebody. I don't really understand that decision, but they open up the door for the Vikings to complete a long pass and then get a field goal. Instead, the throw, the timing was off, and all Jefferson could really say after the game was, well, Kirk said that the timing was off. And I think that that has been a main theme going on weeks now, even back to San Francisco, where just hasn't been on the same page. And they are a different offense without Adam Thielen. Now, there's no excuses for this because the Rams were without their left tackle, and every team at this point has missed players from injuries or COVID. But when Thielen goes out after that, it wasn't until they were down 2 scores that they really got anything going.
No, we're going back to San Francisco game where you can point to 5 consecutive performances where Kirk has been substandard. Sometimes the mechanics have looked weird. The decision-making hasn't been what it was earlier in the season. He's been too easily stymied by those 2 high safety looks, as we talked about last week. And maybe the cracked rib is playing a role. He did make his way on the injury report this week with that rib issue. But it's just not the Kirk that generated some very premature MVP talk early in the season. It's kind of hard to believe that we were there at one point with some people floating that idea, because he's been very ordinary. And, you might expect something like that in Chicago, say, on Monday, where the conditions are poor, the turf is tough, but this is his home stadium. This is an indoor dome building, and still against a good defensive line, looked overmatched, looked skittish in the pocket. And even though the final stat line looks okay, you point to the struggles early in the game. A 3-and-out to begin the football game when you were already lacking energy. That was another theme too. Players talking about not having energy from the crowd, from themselves, just not bringing it early in this football game, falling behind and never catching up.
And with a Philadelphia win, the website 538 now, as we record this, has the Vikings at only a 10% chance to make the playoffs. That can change with different results that are upcoming, including the New Orleans Saints playing with their fourth-string quarterback. But at the same time, there's no way you can finagle the playoff machine to make it look good as the Vikings go down and the lights have turned off on us here. Sorry about that.
And maybe the Vikings
maybe
season.
Maybe the season.
Press
yeah,
onward.
Right.
Onward.
Yeah, right. So anyway, well, the chances are not particularly good at this moment. And I think, Sam, more than anything on the defensive side is they were gifted 3. I don't know if we wave at it, if that will help or not.
Is this Super Bowl, like Super Bowl 48?
Yeah,
the Superdome?
Right. That's right. I'll get it in a second and you could talk. But the run defense, the clutch defense, like these things have just been problems all year. And what the Rams did today was, finally, after a while, Sean McVay said, we should probably just run. Like, Stafford looks way off. And this wasn't just bad Stafford. This was super bad Stafford, who was inaccurate even on the passes that weren't picked. He had 3 or 4 other ones that had a chance. And yet the Vikings defense couldn't take advantage when they had chances to. They were run over by Sony Michel. And once again, for about the 5th time this year, we heard, well, they were doing things with motion and our guys got out of their gaps. Like, well, Detroit was doing that earlier this year. Cleveland was doing that earlier this year. This isn't anything you haven't seen before. And yet the Vikings run defense with its 2 expensive nose tackles has just been incredibly poor. And I feel like that storyline will sort of get overlooked, that they decided to spend their money on nose tackles. And that hasn't improved their run defense at all. All right, you take this, and I'm going to turn the lights back.
Yeah, well, Mike Zimmer, after the game, he was asked about this, and he pointed to, like the Rams keeping an extra wide receiver in line. Well, if it's that easy to, stifle your rush defense, why are you investing so much money in run defenders like that? The run defense hasn't been good all year, and it's been the reason why some teams that kind of have no business being in games or building early leads have done so. It's like Cleveland did this. Baltimore did this, where they just abused the Vikings defensive line. And on the other side in the trenches, soft, right? Like the Vikings have most of their preferred starters in there, and some of them are even playing above average. Like Ezra Cleveland's been good. Christian Darrisaw has shown really good signs. Brian O'Neill is one of the better tackles in the league. And yet the Rams on the other side they lost 3 starters, 1 due to COVID, 2 due to injury. They're patchworking it together and still moving flesh out of the way and looking extremely cohesive, not committing penalties. They looked great in the run game. So I don't understand why it continues to be a struggle for a Vikings team that prided itself so many years on physicality and now are just so easily moved, even with all that girth in the middle of the defensive line.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out, but I think one thing is that teams discovered after Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin went out that you can sort of run toward the edges, and they've had a lot of success doing that. In fact, I thought Chicago went away from it a little bit after having success last week, but the Rams a little more clever and decided to stick with that of running not just to the A gap, but outside as well. And they had a lot of success. And Sony Michel looked like a guy who was a superstar running back and not somebody that the Rams just sort of picked up off the trash heap from the New England Patriots. But this is the story of the Minnesota Vikings 2021 season, is missed opportunities, shoulda, coulda, woulda, receiver isn't happy after the game. I mean, we've just kind of been doing this thing on repeat. And now as they go to Green Bay, it's more or less their last chance to remain in this playoff race and turn this thing around enough. But the last thing I want to discuss with you, Sam, is the stadium was very, very quiet today. The quietest maybe that I've ever heard it since we've been covering games here since 2016. And I just get the sense, I don't think it was Christmas hangover, as Anthony Barr suggested. I just get the sense that even the people who are showing up and want to be excited about the games, that the first sign that something goes wrong, they're like, this again. And there's just not a love for this team. There's not an excitement about it. This isn't a 7-8 team that just drafted a quarterback or was on the rise or had been tanking. It's a team that came into the year with expectations. They will now officially hit their Vegas under, and way under what a lot of people expected after they signed a whole new defense this offseason.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a gander that there weren't a lot of Kirk Cousins jerseys being given out on Christmas Eve to children. People weren't going out and getting Vikings flags and bumper stickers because there's an exasperation with this group. And when you are an exciting product, a product that sort of has an identity with real aspirations, people are going to give you some leash. Like if you have a slow start, then the crowd's going to try to propel you back into it. Whereas with this team and on this day, 3 and out, dropped interception, touchdown drive by the Rams, interception in the red zone. Those are the first 4 things they saw today, and they were out of it. And sure, they made some noise when Anthony Barr had a couple picks. That was exciting. But whenever the Vikings were getting close to maybe grabbing some momentum, they gave it right back away. Right. And that's been the story of the season, is building yourself up and then letting yourself down. And it's just been this zigzag, 2 games up, 2 games down, and we're right back on track. They get to 500, they lose again. 0 for their last 6. That's the other stat of the day. 0 for their last 6, trying to get over 500.
Remarkable how many times this team has sort of walked up to the edge of being a good team and has said, nope, that's not for us. And they are equal in record with the Atlanta Falcons as we stand now. And so I think it's pretty hard to argue that they are a bad team in good teams clothing, or a good team in bad teams clothing, I guess would be the way to put that. So we are now a week away from the possibility of the Vikings being essentially eliminated, if not completely eliminated from the playoffs. We will be in Green Bay when that happens, when the Vikings try to keep their season alive. But I think after today, anybody who is holding out hope has a lot less of it after today. So we will catch you there, and keep an eye out for more hot routes and everything else that we produce. And make sure you check out our longer rants on the Purple Insider postgame podcast, and we'll catch you later.